look at the incredible starry sky, where the galaxy is visible and there's enough light in the galaxy band to illuminate the Earth.
Hi, I'm Peter Panagore. I died ice climbing.
Hey everybody, we are back with another episode on this series I call The Afterlife. I'm super excited for my next guest. The way that he told his story with such conviction, with so much illustration, it's an honor to have him on my platform, and I can't wait for him to tell his story because it's definitely a story worth spreading. It completely erased all fear for me when it comes to death, and I'm honored to have you on my show, Peter Panagore.
Loved meeting you at the conference. It was great. And Chris is he calls himself my little brother. and he calls me Big Brother.
Yeah.
Panagore,
yeah.
That's my big brother.
Yeah. I really liked his story too. His illustrations, he finds words.
He takes you there.
Yeah, he finds words that normal people can't really articulate to like bring that image alive.
Before I went to speak at my last conference, I went up to Peter and I was like, he just looks at me and he was like, hey, it's gonna come out. Just ask yourself, it's gonna be okay. And he's all like, ask yourself, why are you here? And I was like, okay. Then he's like, when you get nervous, just ask yourself, why are you here? And I thought about what he said, and that helped me a lot through the last talk I did.
He's a great guy. Good to see you. Anyway, so how do you want to begin? You want me to just start telling, or what would you like?
Yeah, let's first just start. I had actually a couple icebreakers to start us off with, so people get to know you better and kind of get your vibe, I guess. So first question here. If you had to eat one meal every day for the rest of your life, what would it be?
My healthy side says salad. My sweet tooth says Oreo cookies.
Okay, Oreo cookies. Number 2, if money was no object and your schedule was completely free, no obligations whatsoever, you book a trip for a month, where are you going?
I'm renting a 36 or a 38-foot sailboat in the Mediterranean. I'm sailing as far east as I can get, visiting and stopping along the way.
Okay. If you were left on a desert island with either your worst enemy or no one, which would you choose and why?
Oh, that is a really interesting question. If this was a bloodthirsty worst enemy, probably by myself.
What if it was an enemy because of an argument that you kind of just fell out on? Like it wasn't like a violent enemy, but
I would have that person there.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely would have that person there. However it worked out, I would try to work my interior so that I could still have my integrity.
Yeah.
But also reach an olive branch every day. Olive branch.
Awesome. And last but not least, since you're NDE, what is your perspective on time?
Oh, well, I have to throw in some physics with that because I understand how time works with gravity and how time bends.
Yeah.
So my experience of time in my personal life relates to that, in that I know that time is not only limited, I know that time stretches. When gravitational waves fly through the universe, because black holes collide, time elasticizes, kind of stretches out and goes back in. It's got these wells. Time to me is this limited thing in which I live. And when it ends, I reach into timelessness. I go back to timelessness. So in all its vastness and varieties, it's still this thing that is, to me, not permanent.
Not permanent. It's like we constantly keep time as like this really important thing, but really there's a lot more things to focus on.
Time is limited. I know my time is limited. I've died twice. I've chosen to come back both times. The second time that I came back, I saw the length of my life, not like my end date, but I saw that my I've only got a limited time, really limited time left here, especially in comparison, not just to the length that I've lived so far, but into, well, compared to eternity. It's just that.
Blink of an eye. Yeah, so I guess that's what the good book says. It's but a vapor, huh?
That's what it says. That's right.
Yeah, man. So since we have a limited time, I definitely want to focus on you. I think your story is like super powerful. And like I said, like during that time, during the pandemic, the top 3 indie experiences that I've seen, yours happened to be the third one. It really drove home a point for me. It drove home that, you know, when we leave here, it's not about us being fearful. It's not about us like taking anything with us. You came to this world with nothing, you go out with nothing. But there's something even better to gain when this existence is over. And just how you described it, the vocabulary that you use, I can't even stress that enough. Like, even the English language itself is so limited, but when you have somebody that can actually use the limited vocabulary that we have to explain what they saw, it just puts you there. And I just want to bless other people with the opportunity of hearing you say your testimony. So without further ado, everybody, Peter Panagore.
I'll give a little background, and a little bit of background I'm going to give is some of my childhood and the reason why I was where I was when this happened. And then I'll try to make this high adventure, ice climbing, hypothermic death as brief as possible to get to the real story that I want to tell. So back when I was 14 years old, my sister ran away. She vanished from my family. It broke my family. Everybody's family has trauma. We've all got this. In my particular case, my mom became self-blaming and then ruminated on this for years, and it caused me to leave. And so in my junior year of college, I went to Montana State University to get away and to go backpacking and be in the National Ski Patrol at Bridger Bowl and have an adventure. But I was really there running away from my family because I didn't want to be in the family web dynamic anymore. And so springtime rolls around, and I'd been backpacking. I'd been to Glacier and Yellowstone and a whole bunch of places backpacking the whole time I was there. And I was going to go on an adventure. And so I went to the outdoor club and I found this guy. He's got this outdoor tent, and he'd just been registered as a lead ice climber. And he had a 10-day snow caving backcountry ski trip with 70-pound packs into British Columbia off the Icefields Parkway north of Calgary and Banff in Western Canada. And our skill sets were complementary. I'd been a ski patrol person since I was in high school, so I'm like Mr. Wilderness, first aid. I've been camping in the wilderness since I was a kid, Boy Scouts, be prepared, all that stuff. And so we had this really great trip, and we learned to trust each other in this 10 days. Like, there was nobody going to rescue us. We crossed an avalanche field. That we had spent one night where we had to make an emergency bivouac or die from the cold. It was just, we were totally warm, but the threat was there. And so at the end of that trip, we skied back out, and we're going to do this 1-day ice climb. And this ice climb is right on the Icefields Parkway. It's maybe 100 yards off the Icefields Parkway. Saskatchewan River is flowing. You can hear it through the snow and the ice. Big, huge mountains. 10 feet of snow on the ground. It's March. I'd never ice climbed. I'd been mountaineering. I'd climbed a whole lot of peaks, but never climbed on ice. So Tim came from a wealthy family, and he had not only all the gear, Dad bought him a brand new car for this trip to Montana to go to school. And so Tim had everything that we needed except for all the gear that I needed personally. And so I came up with whatever I could on my schoolboy budget, and I came up short one axe. And so I had an ice axe and an ice hammer, and the hammer, the head of the hammer was basically at the top of my fist, and the bottom was just below my hand. And there was a strap that I would hold it on my wrist so I wouldn't drop it. It's primarily used for chipping ice holes, to put the ice screws in, and putting the screws in and taking the screws out. The axe, and I'm telling you all this for a reason, and the axe is longer, and you have a bigger reach with this thing. And the thing about the axe, you can set the axe in the ice, and then let go of the handle, which means that your forearm isn't burning out because you're gripping all the time. I talked Tim into letting me make this climb. I've thought about this for decades. I convinced myself that we had this conversation where he was like, yeah, it's a good idea. But no, it wasn't. That's not true. I really talked him into this thing. And he knew better. But I was bravado. I was 20 years old. I was Mr. Super Adventure, capable of anything I set my mind to. So we get to this climb. It's probably 12 other people on the ice, maybe 6 other teams. And we're the last ones in. We begin our ascent. And so we climb up this thing, and ice climbing is a very narrow focused Zen sort of state where you have to pay attention to absolutely what you're doing. There's no mind wandering because it's a long way down. And so you don't screw up if you can at all help it. So it has this built-in sort of hyper focus to it. So I was hyper-focused on this whole climb, and Tim's hyper-focused above me. But I'm climbing slowly because this little thing here doesn't reach up as high as this one does, and I'm burning out in my forearm. So by the time, maybe 2 hours before we reach the top, and I was watching other teams descend the whole time I'm climbing, and I'm taking twice as long as everybody else. So 2 hours before we get to the top, I know we're in serious trouble. Because we've been there for 10 days already. The temperature's going to drop about 30 degrees. I had this grave feeling inside me, gravity. And so I got up to the top of my climb. It's 3 pitches up, about 500 or 600 feet. And the last team was leaving. And they're like, what are you guys doing? And we're like, yeah, we're trying to get out. Anyway, the temperature dropped about 30 degrees as soon as the sun went down, and hypothermia began immediately. And we had this conversation, which was brief and to the point. We knew that we were going to die. I described to Tim that this is the situation that we were in. He well knew that we were in danger, and we discussed canoodling up against the mountain, snuggling in. You're supposed to, when you keep your heat together and you don't leave in a wilderness situation, you stay where you are, because if you get lost, they'll never find you.
Wow.
So we couldn't do either of those things because death was at our throats. And so this hypothermic onset was this combination of every single muscle in my body twitching independently of every other muscle. And so it wasn't some kind of rhythm going on there. Everybody had its own rhythm. And my whole body, my jaw was clattering, my hands are shaking, and I was wet to the skin. It's a sweaty sport. And this is also, I should say, this is just before all the high-tech gear came out. So I had this one piece of super high-tech gear, a polypropylene thermal top, but that was it. Everything else was wool and leather.
Wow.
Even my boots were leather, and ice climbing boots. And so this hypothermic reaction was instantaneous. I'm going to spare you all the parts. We're up at the top of this climb. We have hypothermia to contend against. We're out of food. We have water because there's ice we can suck on. There is an energy depletion going on inside us just to stay warm. So the body's vibration, the muscle twitching is keeping me warm, but it's also using up my energy. The temperature's continuing to drop. It's dark. There's no moon. There's a million billion stars in the sky, so we could still kind of see, but it's dark. And we begin to have to save ourselves by traversing in the dark, on the cliff, on a ledge, looking down over to the first rappel. We make it to the third rappel. And there's a whole lot of adventure that happens in between. Hypothermia continues to increase. The moon eventually rises, so we see better, but we make mistakes because the cold steals your brain. It makes you dumb. Made me make poor choices, made Tim make poor choices, which compounded our situation. One of the things I learned about him the week before was that he was completely level-headed and that he would not panic in a dangerous situation. That very first night out when we had to bivouac, I could tell you the whole story, but it was that night that I learned that I could trust this guy not to freak. And he didn't freak the whole time. He never freaked out, but he was also compressed inside himself with the same sort of single willingness to survive that I was having inside myself. Not not a motion of my body was wasted. Not because if I made a motion that I didn't need, I used up the energy that I didn't have. I couldn't feed myself, so it's getting colder. I'm getting weaker because I'm using up my energy. My energy is keeping me alive, and I'm getting more hypothermia and frostbite. I got frostbite everywhere. My eyes were freezing. My brain was slowing down. I couldn't even speak. But I had this willpower. And then there was this point at which my willpower, my keeping my fear, I was terrified, okay? I was terrified, but I was contained. I contained my fear in every motion that I made. But there was this point at which my fear, my will, I should put it this way, my willpower ceased to be in my control. My need for survival reached down deep inside part of my brain that goes early hominid, early mammal, maybe reptilian. I don't know how far back this thing goes, but I switched into this gear of survival. And I have a hard time talking about aspects of what happened to me, and this is one of them. I became animal. And with survival as my only action of everything that I was. And I wasn't driving myself anymore. I wasn't willfully holding my fear down. Yeah, I was this other thing. I was this surviving animal. So we make it to the final rappel, and then we fight the whole way. And now it's sometime early in the next morning. The temperature has dropped further. We are colder, but we're now, for the first time, we're clipped into the mountain because there's iron pins and epoxy and rings, and we're clipped in. And we're looking down 100, 150 feet. But we're also moving much slower. Our hypothermia is much more advanced. My feet have gone beyond feeling like I had them in a hotbed of coals to no feeling at all. And the hypothermia has frozen my eyeballs and made my hands difficult to move. And I had the rope. And so I tied the rope to my harness, and I had the other end of the rope. I love to say this, it's the bitter end. The end of a rope is the bitter end. So I took the bitter end and I tossed it out around the corner, because we were in this corner, and tossed it out around this corner. And I pulled on the rope because it was up on an iron pin and a ring way up above me. And I pulled on the rope, and the rope jammed on the first 3 inches. And I put my weight into it, and it jammed further. And now I don't have a rope. I can't reascend, and I can't descend. And we are in serious trouble.
Wow.
Because now we're stuck. And the drive to continue to pull on the rope, I kept pulling on the rope, and it kept getting tighter, but I couldn't flick it out because there was a corner in the rock. I couldn't, flick the line. It just didn't do it. And so I just kept trying. And then I got hot, and I unzipped my coat, and I knew better because I was, Mr. Wilderness first aid guy, but I didn't care because I was sweating, and I didn't want to sweat. And I felt like all of the heat had rushed from my legs and my arms into my core. And I got hot, and I unzipped my coat, and Tim yelled at me, rightly so. He yelled at me, and I was like, F off, I'm not doing that. I'm too cold, and I'm too hot, rather. I'm too hot. And when this happened, I had the realization that I was going to die. Now, up until this point, I had all this willpower that wasn't even mine. It was mammalian. And then suddenly, this peace just settled on me. I was like, oh, this is it. And as this peace settled on me, and this recognition, I acquiesced. I kind of gave into this. I started thinking about my parents. I was listening to the Saskatchewan River bubble down below us, and I looked out at the beautiful mountains and the moonlight on the snow and the ice and the stars. And I was like, well, this is a good place to die. And then I started thinking about my parents and my sister who had vanished from our lives, and how it broke my family. And now they're going to lose a second child in an international incident. It's going to be in the Boston. I'm from Boston. It's going to be in the Boston Globe. It's it's going to be devastating for my mom and my dad, and there's nothing I can do about it. And then I began to fall asleep, and I would fall asleep like a curtain dropping, boom, like blackness, boom, and I'd fall down and hit the rock because we were on ledge, and I'd stand back up and pull the rope, and then I stood back up this time. And this time I stood up, there was this big, huge peripheral blackness on the edge of my vision. and it was like a stage spotlight, and I'm in the middle of the stage spotlight, and it's closing rapidly. And I thought, what is this? I didn't understand. And I'm looking around, and I had this tunnel vision that was following my vision. I remember looking right at Tim's face and then looking back to the mountain. And as I looked at the mountain, I thought to myself, this is weird, but I must be falling asleep. This must be some kind of sleep. And as it closed and it went to black, I didn't fall asleep. I was awake. And I was awake in a way that I'd not been awake before. Where the mountain was in front of me was a wide opening of darkness that was visible to me. I know that that's a contradiction. I don't know what to do about that. I could see the darkness. You know, when you come into a room and you close the doors and you shut off the lights and it's pitch dark in there. It was like that, except for that I could still see.
Wow.
And in this space, I was confused. I was like, what is that? Where am I? What's going on here? How come I don't feel pain anymore? And as I'm thinking this, trying to figure out what's going on, way far in the distance in this velvet darkness was this pinprick of light the size of a single star. And this star traveled from this vast distance across faster than the speed of light toward me and filled the vision in front of me. And as it filled the vision in front of me, it communicated to me telepathically without language and without concepts, just information. And the information was, I'm taking you, you're coming with me. And I thought, I'm not going anywhere. And I put up my willpower. It's like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm staying right here. And it just grasped me, enveloped me, and took me. And everything I say is metaphor or simile. There's no other way to talk about where there are no brains or language to think in. Mm-hmm. And so I'm inside of this orb, and this orb is gigantic. And I knew who this was. And I don't have this in the book because when I wrote the book, I was still hiding a portion of my life. I came out as a near-death experiencer because it was safe to come out as a near-death experiencer at that time. And I want other NDEers to talk. But I had a previous mystical life as a child. And in my early childhood, this same angelic being, for lack of some term, orb of light, intelligence, massive compassion, power, I knew it. And so it enveloped me, and I was inside of this, I don't know, it was 10,000 times bigger than me, and it was rushing back up the direction that it had come, and I didn't have a physical body. So in all of my previous mystical experiences as a child, I had a connection to my body, but now that was severed. I was not connected to the body anymore, and I had a physical shape, but my physical shape was like a 20-year-old guy, but I was made not out of molecules. I was made out of light, photons, gas, energy, something that was not material, although I still had this shape. And I was inside this entity, and it was speaking to me non-linguistically, comfort and beauty and joy and love and intelligence and superpositioned. And so I knew that it was a reduction, a limited form of its full self, this unlimited self. And so I had this experience of it both being the full divine speaking to me this comfort, but also being this reduction that was for me, approachable to me. And so I'm inside this entity, and it's speaking love and beauty to me and comfort, and I'm rushing back up inside of it, and I am superpositioned. I am outside this orb like an eye of God in the velvet darkness, seeing myself, seeing the orb, this transparent orb, seeing myself in it. And when I'm in it, this is simultaneous. When I look over to see my eye of God, I can't see me from the inside of the orb. But from the outside of the orb, I not only know that I have both two locations, I see myself inside the angelic being. And so I rush up inside of this being, and it gets to this place where edge of this dimensionality where it maybe unfolds itself. I'm still, near-death experience for me is an ongoing exploration of what happened to me. And this is an area that I'm still trying to see what this was. Did it unfold into this other place I was? Did I pop out? I had the sensation of popping out, but also an opening. And anyway, I was suddenly no longer a body of light shaped as a human. I was an orb of light myself, and I was gigantic. But my consciousness was my beingness, was my thinking, was my self-understanding, was my seeing, feeling, touching, experiential self. There was no differentiation between my finger, for instance, and my brain. Same thing. Only I didn't have a brain and I didn't have any fingers. And I was in this infinite darkness, this no thingness, this nothingness, but this nothingness had illumination to it, although it was dark. And I had this experience of comfort and self-knowledge. And the self-knowledge I had was that this has always been me, that I had never actually been this incarnation, that this is my eternal nature. And in this eternal nature, I can see in every direction into the size of our universe. I could see, say, like better than the James Webb telescope. I could see more clearly than that, but there was a limitation to my sight. And this limitation was a darkness, a deep darkness that I knew was infinity. And I couldn't penetrate into infinity. But I am in comfort and I am in contentment. I know myself. I am not afraid. I'm not confused. I'm like, ah. And then this light appeared. And this light, I describe it in a bunch of different ways. An opening of a gigantic door, a monstrous waterfall, a ripping open of the darkness. But this light is liquid, and it's illuminative, and it's living, and it's so much bigger than me. It's just so much, and it is beautiful. It is every color of every star in the sky that night, plus all of the electromagnetic spectrum, infrared, ultraviolet, X-ray, and I can see them, and more than that, much more. And it, at the same moment that it has all of these billions of colors and frequencies, it's also same second white light. It is not flipping from one to the other. It is both simultaneously. This is a place of paradox. I am a no thing in nothingness, and yet it has more reality to its substance than anything I'd ever experienced in my human or mystical life previously. And it is the most seductive, luscious, desirous, beautiful, attractive, and I want it. And as I want it, in my thought to want it, I move toward it, and it moves toward me, and I reach and I touch it. And as I touch it, I see that it's got this solid layer, it's got this translucent layer, so I see into it, and it's got a transparency to it. I see it leads into the infinite darkness itself. And so I touch this with it, with my own self. I have my hand up here, but I didn't have a hand. And it ripped me open. I tear open, and in it pours, and it envelops me, and it is enormous. And I am enveloped in this, but I can't see it. I can only experience it on the inside, but I see that it's seeing me. And as it sees me, all these things happen simultaneously. I'm in this place of timelessness. And so I stack this chronologically so that it makes some sense to me, but it all is at the same time. And so I knew that I was being seen. It was like the fiery eye of the divine being, seeing every hidden dark corner that I had of my own misdeeds and intentionally forgotten actions that I stuffed deep inside myself, and nothing was not seen. There were no shadow corners. Everything was illuminated. And as all of me is being illuminated, and I'm somehow Peter now. I'm this previous person. I'm not just this divine entity of my own being. I also have this experience of my own hell. And this hell of my own being, this hell of my own experience, was all of the suffering that I gave away in my life, from the interior point of view of everyone I gave it to. Not like a witness to it. Oh, look at her having that, stepping on that nail and him laughing. No, it's me inside her body, feeling her pain and her emotions, and simultaneous to that, I'm me as I was in every single one of these incidences causing this pain, and I am superpositioned between these two places, and I'm experiencing all of my reasons for giving her the pain, or him the pain that I wanted to give them. And I saw, so while that's going on, I'm feeling all of their pain. It turns out all of the pain that I gave away was much bigger than the pain I thought was giving away. And I thought I was giving away, I was like trying to hurt, I was trying to put some hurt. And so, but it turned out that the hurt I put there was immense, and that it was mine. And the more I gave away, the more I accrued to myself. And I had this experience where I saw that the divine wasn't witnessing my life, but was living my life with me. And that's how I was known, because it wasn't, and that's how whoever it was I was hurting was known. Same deal. While all of this is going on, I also hear my name being called. I hear myself being called into beingness, not as Peter, not as a human being, but as the origin of my soul. And so that is like the constant that's going on in the background. I hear myself being made, and I know that I'm creature made by Creator. And in the midst of all this pain that I'm experiencing, I know my limitedness. I know my size, and I am nothing, because the being that is showing me myself is unlimited, purity, perfection, way huger than me, and it's only showing me myself with love. And so as I see this darkness of myself, I'm ashamed of the choices that I made in my life, not because I made bad choices, but because I am innately limited in comparison to the immensity, the awfulness of the infinite divine. As I have that experience, I see all of humanity, and I see all of the brokenness of all the people of the earth. And everyone has a radical equality of limitation. There's no one above anyone else, not because of society or finances or whatever it is. It's because we are limited and the divine is unlimited. And so my comparative ceased to be other people. My comparative became this and not that. And that, in knowing that even though I had made these willful choices that caused this harm to these people, I also understood that I didn't write the code to the universe. I am not creator. I am creature. I am part of the system that's been created. And in that way, I came to understand that humanity, part of our humanity in this hurtful world, is that we hurt each other. That's what we do. It's some more than others, but in comparison, if you're looking at the earth from the moon, you don't see the Himalayas. All you see is the roundness of the globe. Mm-hmm. And that is what I was seeing of humanity. We are radically similar in our brokenness. And that single part of my NDE left me post NDE in my life much more inclined toward seeing the other person as myself, and seeing my flaws, and understanding their humanity and flawedness. So while all of this was going on, I experienced all of this pain. I see these choices that I made. I see the limitations. I see the unlimited nature of the divine. I see the love that had been given to me in my life. I saw the love that I had given away that had also accrued to me. All this pain that I caused was my karma. But as I listened, as I listened to the love instead of the pain, I turned toward the light. I turned toward the love, and it was overflowing like a tidal wave, waiting for me to accept the love and forgiveness that has always been mine. I knew that I was known from the moment of my birth, and that I was never not known, that everything about me was known, and that I was loved in everything I did, no matter good or bad, because of my inner core of being made of divine light. As this is all happening, there's more happening. And so I hear this being called into being. I see myself as creature. I have all of my pain relieved of me. Suddenly I am infilled with the divine presence, and I'm inflated. And this inflation is beauty, love, light, joy, truth, knowledge, understanding, bliss, paradise, awe. And all of these things are one thing. They're not separate. We have them separate here, but they are oneness, this one light, and I am inflated, and I am to the point of inflation where it felt like one more ounce of light and I would become absorbed into the infinite and lose all sense of myself, which was fine. I wasn't in control of this experience. This is just what was happening. And as I'm in this inflated state, I see other layers of my divine self. I see the origin of myself. This origin of myself is I'm superpositioned as a photon, as a single photon, and there's like a cable or a cord or a light connection to a trillion billion septillion photons. And this trillion billion septillion photons is like a field of photons, and they are the them, and they are the divine being, and they are together the oneness of being. And it is, I can't see the depth of it or the height of it or the breadth of it. And I am of the same substance, as the good book says, in the image of the divine. And my image is a photon of light, and I am both them and me. I am part of the divine being in the fullness, but I'm also somehow limited outside. This photon that was superpositioned with the divine, with a field of photons, and this was my primary self, as far as I in this experience. And while I was seeing myself as one of them, but separate as well, I saw below me another layer of myself. And this other layer of myself was elongated, and it was, I used to describe it as the long tail of my everlasting soul. It was, but now I'm calling it a baguette. And it's this baguette, and this baguette has kebab spears in it, and the kebab spears are my incarnations of my previous lives, but none of them are me. I am still this primary photonic speck of light, but I see this elongated soul that is also me, and it has enveloped all these other lives, and all these other lives are simultaneously happening from my point of view. There's a chronology to them, but there is timelessness for them. They're all happening now for me. And so I see all these previous lives, but I recognize that they're not even the loaf of bread. They are influencing the bread, but they're not the bread itself. I am not any of these kebab spears, but I want to see what's going on. And so I ask. And so I'm brought down inside two lives. And in the first life, and I'm like flown down, and suddenly I'm popped inside this body, and I'm inside this body, and I have a bunch of friends, and they're having conversation, and we're walking on a road, and I have sandals on, and it's a dusty road, and there are palm trees and a couple of houses, but it's a highly trafficked human road, like not a lot of ox carts on it, but there's a lot of people, and they're all walking, and they're all going this way and that way. And I walk inside this guy's body for a while, and I don't understand what's being talked about. At least I don't remember now. A lot of my NDE was left behind, and I'm always trying to like dig it out of myself. And so I don't know what the conversation was about, but I did have this impression that there was like a spirituality thing happening. And then I was pulled out of this body and I was shoved into another body. And I don't know how distant it was from this first experience of that incarnation, but I was like a lizard, or I was in some kind of other, or a dragonfly or something. I was inside this body and I was looking out through these eyes at this completely alien world. And whether I was even on Earth, I have no idea. I don't know what I was. All I know is that I was not a human being, and I really had no idea what was going on. And then I was pulled out of this thing, and I'm back up into my photonic self. And then I want to know everything about the universe. I want to know how the whole thing works. I want to understand about the creation. I want to understand the cosmic creation of it. I want to understand its physical functionality. I want to know about the divine energy, but I also want to know about the chemistry and the geology and everything. I want to know everything, physics. I want to know it all. And it all dumps inside of me. And in an instant, I have all this knowledge, but I still can't see into the infinity. They're still beyond my capacity. And so in all of this NDE, I had a certain level of a varying level of capacity for understanding, but never went into the full loss of self. I was the light, but I was still not fully the light. So I am then shrunk down, like I am reduced in size, and I'm now in the void again, this darkness again, and I've got a smaller size back to my orb self. And I say, am I dead? And the voice says to me, yeah, you're dead. And I can't see the divine. The divine is everything there is. I'm like not in heaven before the throne of God. Everything is the throne of God. Everything, and there is no thing here. There's no religion, there's no gender, there's no molecules, and I have no brain. I have no conceptualizations. There's no politics. There's no finance. There's nothing except for the divine being itself, which is all there is. And so it is. I'm in this, and it's all around me, and it's speaking to me. And I say, "Am I dead?" And it says, "Yeah, you're dead." I say, "Well, I haven't gone all the way yet. I'm still I've still got a part of me here." And I say, what about my parents? I kind of look down and see them, and I like they're suffering. And as I thought this, and they're suffering, it swept me across itself, and it brought me to this edge where, I don't know if you guys know about the Higgs boson field. It's this place where science says energy becomes physical matter. Okay. In the universe. And so there's and that's my example, there's like this Higgs boson field between this heaven that I'm in, that is all there is. When I mean it's all there is, I mean it's all there is. And I am my head is kind of stuck out to this energy to matter place, but I don't have a head. Okay, so I'm still this divine energy being, but I'm now, most of me is still in the body of the divine, but I can see into our universe. And I am looking at our universe, and I'm in the middle, I'm on the edge of creation, looking at galaxies, millions of galaxies in this vast space between them, and I'm seeing them in live time, and my vision is turned to see, and it's below me, and it's above me, and it's in front of me, but not behind me, because behind me is this divine self. And I was shown back to the origin of our universe, not like the Big Bang. Maybe it was the Big Bang, but it was really the energetic origin. There was infinite darkness that I could see. And out of this infinite darkness was pouring this light. And this darkness was making this light, and it was light, it was this golden light, like a web, like a flow, and it was creating our universe as I watched. I, as a divine being, I'm always in the moment of creation. Even though I had this long tail of my soul, I'm always new now. And always being called into being. And this universe, our universe, was being called into being, but also it was in its origin. And this light is being woven into all of the galaxies and all of the planets, and it's inside, intrinsically inside every single molecule, and all of it. I see all this universe, all of it is made of the same substance of light. And as this is happening, there are universe after universe after universe popping out of this darkness. It's just popping out, popping out, popping out, popping out. And ours is consistent, but there's this flowering of these energies of these other universes, and it just ongoing. And all of that was love. This light was love, and all of this love, all these universes that were popping out, the infinite itself, the universe of our existence where love underwove everything, all of that as a containment, as a unit, was directed at me. And it was speaking directly to me and saying,
See this infinite love I have for all there is. I love you with this love, always was, is, and will be.
people talk about the unconditional nature of love. It's unconditioned, unconditional, unlimited, incomprehensible, inconceivable, unimaginable. The immensity of it is powering my life. And as I'm experiencing this, I have always loved you this way. You are my beloved. My vision is shown down to our galaxy, down to our planet, and I'm seeing Earth in live time, dark, the sun is in one place and it's night in another place, and I can see every single human being, 7 billion people all at once, and inside of every single human being is this speck of golden light that pervades all there is, and it's inside of every human being, and there is a dark fog around the world, and people can't see through this fog. I can see the light, but they can't see it. I know it's there. They can't see it. And I feel like I'm the prodigal child. I'm the most important baby that's ever been born. And as I feel this particularity of being loved, that same love in equality is aimed at every single human being. And so it's like, I know the word unique means one of a kind. In heaven, it doesn't mean that. Everybody is one of a kind, and everybody has this unique being loved of all the love there is. Everybody, and everything is not only made of this love, it says to me, I lose none of myself. I am all there is, and all comes back to me. No one and nothing is ever lost. And as I see every human being, and I see wars, I see terrible violence, I see beautiful actions, I see babies being born, I see a ship in the middle of the Atlantic, and I can see it, and I'm like, I want to go check it out. And so I'm sent down to this ship, and it seems to me to be a US Navy ship. And in this ship, I am into a cabin, and in this cabin is an officer, and I'm standing in this cabin looking at this officer. Of course, he can't see me, and I see inside of this war-trained man a ball of light inside him of love. There is this golden light inside him that comes out his eyes, and I can see it, and I follow him up on deck, and I'm on deck in like the helm area, and there are other people in, and they all have this light inside themselves. And then I'm pulled back out again, and I'm back up, and I see my parents' faces, and my mom and my dad, and I see all of their suffering for all of their life, all compiled into their faces. And then they split into two, and there's 2 moms and 2 dads, and mom and dad 1 and mom and dad 2. Mom and dad 1, I see my life with them if I go back to life, and I see their suffering. And then I see, and mom and dad 2, I see their life without me, and their radical break, their shattering, their destruction. But the end of their lives are the same. They end up in the divine light just like me. And for me, my life was that fast. My human life was the wink of my eye. And I could see that their lives were the wink of their eyes, and that they would have the suffering. Either way, one much worse than the other. But in either case, they were going to be the most beloved there was in all the universe, just like me, just like all of us. And the voice said,
See, all will be well. All has been well. All will be well for you and for all there are. So come and stay with me. It's time for you to come home.
And I say, but you're kind of showing me a choice. And I say, if I go back to my life, can I come back here? And the voice says, yeah, you come back here to this, everything I described and more I can't even say. And I say, well, if that's the case, I choose to live my life because I don't want my parents to hurt so much. And the voice says to me, well, you won't live your life. And flicks me like a pebble off a finger, and I shoot back out again, and I'm now encased again inside this angelic being who is superpositioned with the divine, and I'm being compressed and compressed and compressed, becoming more and more dense, and in front of me there are 10,000 million doors, and they're like the flower behind you. They're just like this door after door after door after door, and in the center of all of them is this brilliant white laser beam, and it's gigantic, and I can look back through this angelic being, and I can see its origin coming out of the dark infinity, but I can't see into the heaven that I had just been in. I can see this beam coming out, and this beam illuminated all of these doors from a greater to lesser degree in gradation, but the light itself was a door, and the voice said to me, choose. And in an instant, it said to choose light. And in an instant, I made all these choices. I knew that I was going to be a messenger, but I wanted a lot of humanity. I wanted to be flawed enough to be understood. I wanted to be fully human. And so I picked some creativity. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a communicator. I wanted some bohemian in my life. I wanted adventure. I made all these choices in a freaking instant. And in that instant, a door opened but I was also choosing the light, because the light showed me itself. I was bathed in love, but there was enough of me by the time I made the choice, enough of my light body came back again, that I had some selfishness. I couldn't become not human. I don't know how to describe that. But this door opened, and I went down this tunnel in an instant. The door opened, and I'm down this tunnel. And in this tunnel, there are 10 million doors. And these doors, they all lead to these other tunnels. And they're all choices I could make. And I fly down this tunnel, and I get denser and denser and denser as I go. And I get to the end, and I kind of like pop out. And I'm still inside this angelic being, but now I'm very dense. I'm like clay now. And I see a body on a cliff. I see it's dangling on a strap, and after this, with arm flailing out, and then I see this person bending over it, shaking it, and I know the guy's screaming because I can see his mouth moving, but I can't hear anything. And this angelic being stuck its hand or its being or a sharp tool or something inside this human chest and ripped it open and shoved me in. Twisted, burned me in, crushed me in, and I was now compressed inside this thing, and I was in it, and I looked up through that hole it's like a peephole, and I could see the angelic being, and I could see back into the darkness, and I could see the light, and then it just closed, and now I'm trapped inside. I feel what is going on here, and now I'm confused, and I feel my brain, not my brain, I feel this brain coming back online, and as it whirs into power up, I'm powered up into pain, like all of this pain that I hadn't had when I was dead, because I was healing, wholeness, wellness, contentment, and it wasn't like my suffering had been erased when I was dead. It was like it never existed. It's not like you get a cut, and then you get a scar. Yeah. It's like no scar because there never was a cut. There wasn't even an arm. And so now I'm immersed in this painful place, and I'm feel my body being shaken. I could hear this noise, and then my ears started to hear better, and I hear, "Don't die, don't die, don't die." And I open my eyes up, and Tim is like eyeball to eyeball to me, screaming and crying, and "Don't die, don't die, don't die." And then he sees that my eyes are open. He's like, "Don't die, you were dead, you were dead. I thought you were dead. If you're gonna die, I'm gonna die." And he pulls me up, and he's in this panic, and he's talking, but I don't have any idea who he is. I don't know where I am. I don't know who I am. All I know is that I am not this thing. I am this other thing, and somehow I'm trapped in this one. And I'm completely like, what's going on here? And eventually, in a few minutes' time, I kind of come to. I'm like, oh, this is Tim. We're ice climbing. We're on this cliff. And where was I? Who am I? What am I now? I'm trapped inside this thing. I know I'm not this thing, but here I am. And so then I pulled on the rope, maybe because I'd been dangling off. Maybe it was a miracle. I don't really know. The rope came free on the first pull. We descended and we self-treated for hypothermia. And the story goes on from there. Before I get back to Bozeman, but from that point on, I was an entirely different person. My future, the life I was going to live, the life I was planning with my family to be in our family architectural firm that I've been working towards since I was a kid and was going to go to graduate school for. All of that was gone. I was like, all of my religion was gone. All of my belief was gone. All of my faith was gone. All of my sense of who I was gone. I was entirely like in the movie Avatar, in the first one, where only I don't know the planet I'm on. I don't know who the players are. Everybody seems to think that they know me, but I am not who they think I am. And so I began this very long journey, it's still going on today, to figure out what happened to me. And what I learned early on was that if I entered back inside myself, if I set my aim to my interior life, then I found that I could integrate into the world. And every time I tried to integrate into the world in the exterior, I couldn't do it. I am a misfit. You know, I'm the island of misfit toys. I am a misfit toy, and I misfit in this world. So by pointing my life interiorly, I found that's where I fit. And when I fit there, I fit better here.